Imagine the scene. You go to bed after a long day, get comfortable under the covers, close your eyes, and prepare to fall asleep. Just a few moments pass, and you suddenly find yourself immersed in a very strange dream, vivid, almost real. When you wake up, it doesn't fade away right away. On the contrary, you remember the details with surprising clarity. At first, it seems like nothing more than a bizarre, meaningless dream, but then curiosity arises. You decide to look up its meaning and discover that you are far from the only one who has had that experience. That dream is common, shared by many people, and over time, numerous interpretations have emerged. If you are reading this text, it is very likely that something similar has happened to you. For this reason, it is interesting to analyze the most frequent dreams and try to understand their possible meanings. Dreams have always fascinated human beings, but before interpreting them, it is useful to understand why we dream. When we sleep, the conscious mind slows down and rests, while the subconscious mind becomes active. Its task is to process all the information accumulated during the day: thoughts, emotions, images, and experiences. It is as if our mind were constantly taking mental notes. If every event of the day were written on a small piece of paper, by the end we would have a mountain of notes to organize. The subconscious does exactly this work during sleep. However, the subconscious does not communicate the same way as the rational mind. The conscious mind uses words, logic, and coherent sequences. The subconscious instead expresses itself through symbols, images, sensations, and emotions. This explains why dreams often seem confused, irrational, or surreal. It is not chaos, it is simply a different language. According to many experts, dreams represent a kind of universal language, capable of transforming abstract emotions into concrete images. Even though there is no definitive scientific proof that links every dream to a specific emotional state, recurring interpretations have developed over time for some very common dreams. These are not absolute truths, but widely shared symbolic readings. Dreaming of falling. One of the most widespread dreams of all is falling. It often happens just as we are falling asleep. The body suddenly jerks and we wake up abruptly. This phenomenon has a physiological explanation and is linked to an instinctive reflex that our body uses to react to potential danger. From a symbolic point of view, however, falling has a deeper meaning. To fall means to lose balance, stability, and control. Not surprisingly, this dream is often associated with moments of anxiety, fear, or insecurity. It may indicate the feeling of no longer being in control of some aspect of your life: work, relationships, studies, habits, or personal identity. In general, dreaming of falling reflects an emotional state of instability. Being chased. Another extremely common dream is being chased. In the dream, you may be running away from an animal, a monster, a stranger, or a threatening figure. The setting changes, but the feeling is always the same: fear and urgency. This type of dream is often interpreted as a symbol of avoidance. It indicates the presence of a problem, conflict, or decision that the person is avoiding in real life. What is chasing you in the dream does not necessarily represent something concrete, but rather an inner difficulty that you prefer to ignore. The subconscious, unable to use words, turns that discomfort into a physical threat from which to flee. Losing teeth. Dreaming that your teeth fall out or crumble is a disturbing and very realistic experience. This dream is often linked to stress, fear, and uncertainty. In many cultures, teeth are a symbol of strength, stability, and security. Their loss can therefore represent a feeling of fragility or loss of control. Sometimes this dream is also associated with the fear of being judged, a lack of self-confidence, or a problem that is being neglected. Reflecting on what was going on in your life at the time of the dream can help to understand its origin. Losing hair. Hair is often connected to the idea of beauty, youth, and personal identity. Dreaming of losing it may indicate a wound to self-esteem or a fear related to aging. In other cases, the dream reflects a feeling of vulnerability or loss of control. As with other dreams, the central theme is often insecurity. Drowning. Dreaming of drowning is one of the most distressing dreams. The sensation of struggling against the water and being unable to breathe is extremely intense. Symbolically, drowning represents being overwhelmed. It may indicate an emotional or practical situation that feels too big to handle: excessive responsibilities, external pressure, repressed emotions, or unresolved problems. In this dream, as in falling, the person has no control over the situation, but unlike falling, the struggle is continuous, which reinforces the sense of emotional exhaustion. Arguing or fighting. Dreams of fighting are very intense because they trigger deep emotional responses. Their meaning varies depending on who the opponent is. If you are fighting a person you know in the dream, it often reflects a real unresolved conflict involving repressed anger or unaddressed tension. If, on the other hand, the opponent is a stranger or a faceless figure, the conflict is probably internal. It may represent a struggle between two parts of yourself, who you are and who you would like to be, or between opposing choices. In any case, the dream signals an emotional conflict that requires attention. Being naked in public. Dreaming of being naked among other people is embarrassing and uncomfortable. This dream is strongly linked to vulnerability. It often indicates a fear of being judged, criticized, or exposed. It may emerge during periods when you feel under pressure, observed, or exposed. Nudity symbolizes the absence of emotional protection. In the dream, as in reality, you feel defenseless. Being pregnant. Dreaming of pregnancy when you are not actually pregnant is generally interpreted in a positive way. This dream symbolizes new beginnings, personal growth, and important changes. Pregnancy metaphorically represents something that is taking shape, an idea, a project, or a new phase of your life. Interestingly, this dream can also occur to men, reinforcing the idea that its meaning is symbolic rather than literal. Dying. Dreaming of your own death can be frightening, but it often has a meaning related to transformation. In many cases, death in a dream represents the end of one phase of life and the beginning of another. It may indicate a deep change, such as the end of a relationship, a new job, or a personal transformation. It is therefore not a prediction, but a symbol of renewal. Meeting a deceased loved one. This dream is often linked to grief and the need to process a loss. It may represent the desire to maintain an emotional bond or to come to terms with the person's absence. Some spiritual interpretations see these dreams as a form of contact, while others consider them part of the emotional healing process. Snakes. Snakes are among the most complex symbols in dreams. Their meaning depends greatly on the context. They can represent transformation and healing thanks to the image of shedding skin. In other cases, especially if the snake is threatening or appears in a safe place such as one's home, it may symbolize hidden dangers, betrayal, or inner fears. Dreams are not literal messages, but symbolic representations of our inner world. Interpreting them means observing ourselves, our emotions, and our life journey. There are no definitive answers, but understanding the language of dreams can help us better understand what is going on within us.